Joining me now is Steve Hartley. He is Executive Director of Foundations of Music. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm very good.
Good. First of all, I have to say, you have quite a diverse background that I'd like to get into. You are actually from Hammond, but you've lived in Chicago for quite a while. But you have taught in CPS. You've taught up on the North Shore. You've done quite a bit of stuff. Do you want to give people just a little bit of a background on yourself?
Sure. I was born in Hammond. My mom is the daughter of Irish immigrants. My grandmother was a lunch lady at Chicago Vocational School on the South Side for a long time. And my mom decided to move to Hammond to try to get me a better shake than what she had.
Okay.
And those people who know Hammond might chuckle, but Hammond probably was a step up at that point. So I was there, and from there I went to Chicago because I got involved in music and theater, and there was really only one place to go and get involved with that in the area, which is Chicago.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I eventually aged and decided that I need to also have a steady day job, and I decided to go into education. And I had a lot of passion about working in the city. I was from a low-income family. My high school was very diverse. It was, I think there was, my high school reunion, we were all joking about how it's the only time in our lives we've ever been in a place where there was really no majority group. There was
Now, your high school, I'm sorry, because you've been in a lot of different places. High school, you were in Hammond, right?
Correct.
I just wanted to double check. Okay.
Yes, I went to Hammond High.
Okay.
So I went to school. I went back to school. I went to UIC, got a master's degree in education, and I started teaching. I started off at the Archdiocese of Chicago, teaching in a Catholic school in a little village neighborhood as I finished my master's degree. And then I went and I started teaching at National Teachers Academy, which was located, well, they tore them down, but it used to be the Harold Ickes homes right there by Chinatown.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Those are all gone, and that's where I was teaching. And I taught in CPS for a while after that, and ended up going to Winnetka to teach in the school system up there and became a curriculum facilitator.
And then you also, I know, weren't you development manager for Cabrini Green Legal Aid back when there was a Cabrini Green?
Yeah, well, Cabrini Green Legal Aid started at Cabrini Green, helping housing residents of Cabrini Green. They didn't really change the name, but they go by CGLA now.
Okay.
And they moved out of the Cabrini Green area, and now they serve people all over Chicago, dealing primarily with people who have spent time in the criminal justice system who are looking to move past that and have their records cleaned up or connected to services that help them move on so they can become employed and take care of their families.
And now you are Executive Director of Foundations of Music. So what brought you back around? I mean, obviously you had an interest in theater as a kid. You have a background in education. So this Foundations of Music, in a sense, kind of sort of combines the two together.
Correct. So for a while, before I became a teacher, I was a professional musician myself. I played bass and drums, and I was a touring drummer in several bands in the 90s and early 2000s. I got more involved in teaching and less involved in touring and just played locally. When I got out of teaching, I wanted to get involved in leadership opportunities, and I went back to school to get another master's degree because I apparently also collect master's degrees.
Right. You can never have too many, though. That's what they say.
If you're paying for them, you can.
That's true, yes.
It starts to add up. So I started running a youth center on the west side of Chicago in the Oster neighborhood called the Peace Corner Youth Center. From there, I had a progression. So I was working at Cabrini Green Legal Aid, which was very exciting for me. I loved the work they were doing, but this opportunity opened up with Foundations of Music. I was a musician. I was a teacher in the city. This organization targets neighborhoods that don't have access to music education, typically south and west side of Chicago. It was the same communities I was dealing with Cabrini Green Legal Aid. It was about bringing music to the children. How could I not apply? Was sort
right.
of,
Right. Well, and I mean, the thing is, in my mind, education obviously is important, but a well-rounded education is even more essential, and that to me also includes the arts.
Absolutely. Right now, if Ingenuity is an organization in Chicago we should all be aware of as well. They do a lot of work with making people aware of the situation of arts education in Chicago, and they produce data every year that shows that there's about a third of the schools in Chicago do not have full-time music education, and that many schools in Chicago do not have arts education full-time at all.
Well, you know what? I find that shocking, and I say that because I don't live in the city anymore. I've moved out to the suburbs. But when I was living in the city, I remember investigating. It was a magnet school, and it was a fine arts magnet school. And I went there to learn a little bit more about it because it was so conveniently located to where we lived. I thought, well, you owe yourself and your son at least looking into it. You know, it doesn't mean you have to go there, but you have to look into it. And the thing that really turned me off about the entire program was the fact that there was no full-time arts program and there was no full-time physical education program. And while like I said earlier, academics are important, I think that the inclusion of physical education and arts are also important.
Absolutely. I mean, you need all these things. I mean, yes, we focus on music education, so of course I'm going to want to talk about that.
Right.
But I had a conversation today about sport, and even something like that. These different curriculums or these different subjects, if you want to consider them all subjects, these are ways for different kids to be engaged.
Right.
These are ways for different children to play their strengths, and accessing these areas of a child's mind and engaging them, and maybe through the arts or through sports or through physical activities helps with everything else because it's all connected. I mean,
Correct.
You look at, I have a 10-month-old daughter, and I'm a big fan of early childhood education theory. When you think about what teaching really is you look at the child, you figure out what their interests are, what they're already sort of doing, and you present activities that help them progress what they're already doing. Like if you see they like to climb, you get them something new to climb on. Maybe you stack it for them or whatever it is, and they call that scaffolding, and that's early childhood curriculum. You actually see how it connects to human development.
Right.
Why that gets lost by 3rd, 4th, 5th grade?
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't agree with it, and I think there's a lot of arguments out there about what makes a good education system and how do you prove that people are doing what they have to do, and that's where you get into standardized testing, and there's a lot of arguments about that. Right. I don't want to even mention my thoughts on standardized testing, but I do believe that we should be doing what's good for children.
Right.
And I think most people agree with that.
Absolutely.
And I think children do better when they have a variety of activities, a variety of things to engage with, and data shows and evidence shows that kids that are connected through arts or physical education or the activities do better in all these other subjects as well.
Well, I was going to say, I think that, yes, what you're talking about is a well-rounded individual.
Absolutely.
And at this age, when you're talking about elementary school age children, you can't expect a 7 or 8-year-old to sit in a classroom from 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There needs to be something else. That doesn't mean it can't be less educational. It's just a different kind of education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not to get too heavy, but I think it's also important to think about what neighborhoods are we seeing these deficiencies.
No, you're right. I mean, that's not getting heavy. That's being sadly accurate.
I think as a culture and as the city of Chicago has been going through so much with this, if you spend some time, and I've worked in the projects and I've worked in the top of the North Shore district.
Right. That's why I wanted a little background on on you, because I find your background interesting. Now, with Foundations of Music, and I don't mean to rush through this, but I just know that we're running out of time. With Foundations of Music, is this something that you go into the schools with, or is this something that people can come to you for?
We go to the schools. We believe that access to music education means you don't put more burden on parents. This should be in the schools where the kids already are. We go to the neighborhoods where the kids need it most.
All right. So you are there, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're there on the west side. You're there in some of those neighborhoods that are really lacking this sort of curriculum.
Absolutely. And ideally, we work with the local area school, and we have a great relationship with Chicago Public Schools. We're in those schools, or we try to connect with the Park District or local community centers to also provide programming to the same communities, right where right there.
Well, Steve, I think this sounds like a wonderful program. I commend you for just your dedication. I think it's great, and I wish that we had more time to talk to you this morning.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on.
Hey, Steve, real quick, though, before we go, let's throw out the website so everyone can get it.
www.foundationsofmusic.org, and that's foundations with an S.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.